Howdy there, folks. James, politicalfriar.com, coming at you again. I got my law hat on, so we're going to do a legal topic. It's about the former president, Donald Trump. We're going to talk about the classified documents, or actually not classified documents, but the documents case in South Florida today. This is another one of my readers where I'm going to read you a piece that I wrote for politicalfriar.com so that you can get it in this medium. And before I get started, I want to remind you to hit that like button. And if you like what you hear here, subscribe. Catch the next one that way. All right, here we go. Donald Trump felon, South Florida. On June 21st, 2023, Kendra Kingsbury was sentenced to 46 months in federal prison. She was convicted under Section 793E of the 1917 Espionage Act, which makes it a crime to willfully retain national defense information, quote unquote. National Defense Information, NDI, is defined in the statute as, quote, information the possessor has reason to believe could be used for the injury of the United States, end quote. Note here that the crime does not, repeat, not require the NDI to be a classified document. That's because classified documents didn't exist in 1917 when the act was passed. President Truman created the modern classification system in 1951. Retention of NDI is punishable with a fine and up to 10 years in prison. So, the conviction equation for the crime that Kendra Kingsbury is serving time for looks like this. Unlawful possession of the NDI plus possessor has reason to believe that the NDI could be used to injure the United States equals up to 10 years in jail. So, who is Kingsbury? And what did she do to find herself in the federal clink? Well, Kingsbury was an FBI intelligence analyst focused on drug trafficking, violent crime, and counterespionage. She had access to NDI based on the nature of her work. Over 12 years, Kingsbury admitted to taking home and keeping, some documents were kept in her bathtub, keeping 386 documents she knew to be NDI. But why would she take the NDI home with her? Well, the FBI was tight-lipped when asked about motive, saying that the investigation, quote, revealed more questions and concerns than answers, but motive doesn't matter for the crime. One need not have an unlawful reason to unlawfully possess NDI. One must merely have reason to know that the NDI in their possession is unlawfully possessed. Kingsbury was just the most recent, though, among dozens of convictions under the Espionage Act for mishandling NDI over the last 106 years. She's unlikely to be the last. Brings us to Trump. If this is all sounding somewhat familiar to you, on June 8th, 2023, ex-President Trump was indicted for taking home and keeping NDI in his bathroom, too, and obstruction of justice. Sounds the same as Kingsbury, doesn't it? Well, it's not. It's worse. Unlike Kingsbury, Trump had ample opportunity to get out of trouble for keeping NDI at his home. Through his lawyers, Trump was repeatedly informed of his obligation to return any NDI to its proper custodians. Instead, Trump instructed his co-defendant and others to hide the NDI from his own lawyers. It begs the question of why Trump wanted to keep the NDI. Well, while I too would like to know the answer to that question, just like Kingsbury, the motive is not an element in the crime. It doesn't matter. Probably, Trump likes souvenirs, show off to house guests, as was alleged in the indictment when he showed a plan to attack Iran to a biographer from Mark Meadows. Well, let's dig deeper into that particular episode and apply the law to the facts as we know them because it's the easiest to understand of the allegations. The biographer was recording the conversation with Trump. Trump knew that he was being recorded. On the tape, Trump brandishes a document, papers can be heard rustling, and encourages the biographer to look at it. He then tells the biographer that he isn't supposed to be showing it to the biographer because of its sensitive nature. If you want to hear the recording, CNN has it on the internet. This isn't a secret thing. The biographer, now we apply the law. A plan to attack Iran is unquestionably NDI. Were Iran to come into possession of the document, it would injure the United States. The NDI was unquestionably in Trump's possession. He was holding it in his hand. Trump unquestionably knew that the document could injure the United States, that it was NDI. Why else would he tell the biographer that he shouldn't be showing it to him? By his own words, he was clearly conscious of his guilt. Outside of anything else in the indictment, this single episode was a felony violation of the Espionage Act, caught on tape, and Trump knew he was being recorded. Defenses. Trump has forwarded several defenses for his action. Let's run through them to see if any of them apply. First, Trump claims that he had the right under the Presidential Records Act to retain the documents. Welcome, everyone, to the bizarro world where everything is opposite from what is real. The Presidential Records Act explicitly forbids outgoing presidents from retaining any public documents, be they NDI or the menu from the state dinner with the President of Mexico. The act was first put in place after Nixon resigned. Its purpose is to stop presidents from keeping documents, not enable them to. While it has no criminal penalties for presidents who keep documents, it very much does not authorize presidents to do so. It tells them to do the exact opposite. This defense is about as pure nonsense as nonsense gets. Second, what about Biden and Pence having NDA in their possession? Well, this is better than the Presidential Records Act defense. While it's not legally relevant that Biden and Pence were found with NDI in their possession for Trump, it does raise the question of whether Trump should be prosecuted when those two are not. However, there's a pretty easy to understand distinction between the cases. When Biden and Pence found NDI in their possession, they immediately turned it over to the proper authorities. By contrast, Trump entered into a conspiracy to keep his NDI for some reason. Indeed, none of the 31 counts are for retaining NDI that Trump or Trump's lawyers voluntarily turned over. He got off the hook for everything he gave over. The charges are based only on NDI that Trump attempted to hide. The simple conclusion here is that if Trump had just given the NDI back when asked instead of hiding it, he wouldn't be in trouble. Third, Trump claims he declassified all the NDI before he left office, so it was not criminal for him to retain it. Well, thankfully, we don't have to get into whether a president can declassify a document in his mind without telling anyone else or going through the legal procedures. As discussed earlier, the classification statute does not matter for the crimes of which Trump is accused. The indictment implicitly acknowledges this in Count 11. Count 11 is for the retention of, quote, military contingency planning, almost certainly NDI, but the document related to Count 11 has no classification marking and may very well not have been classified. Classification or declassification doesn't matter. This defense is a bust. Fourth is the political defense. Trump's last best shot at avoiding the consequences of his actions is at the ballot box. Because these are federal crimes, if he wins the presidency in 2024, he'd probably make everything go away. While that type of self-serving abuse of power is exactly why Nixon was forced to resign, in the Trump-era standards have changed. Trump fans simply don't care if their president's a crook. Conclusion. Overall, do I think Trump will be convicted in this case? I have to say maybe. By the black letter of the law, Trump is toast. But Trump's correct every time he says that the justice system in the United States is flawed and operates on two tiers. Though not the two tiers Trump says. The real two tiers are illustrated by how Trump and Biden were treated and how Kendrick Kingsbury was treated. Trump was at least given the chance to return his NDI before being charged. Kingsbury was afforded no such grace. Why? Because Trump is the one who receives special treatment based on his status. Kingsbury is the one that suffered from the two-tier system. Trump is receiving special treatment that few, if any, Americans would be given. And it is in his favor, not the opposite. Kingsbury was a 12-year FBI veteran who took NDI home and now is going to jail for 4 years. Trump's next president who took NDI home and might be president for 4 more years. Two-tier justice system indeed. That's the end of the piece. I thought to do this one today, in particular, because Donald Trump more or less admitted to exactly the crime that he is accused of on social media last week. He said, of course, people saw the boxes and boxes of documents that he stored at Mar a Lago, boxes that included classified information. Thereby, he says, with his own words, I'm a felon. Believe people when they tell you who they are. And then I suppose the next step is you got to judge whether you want somebody who shows that judgment when handling national security secrets to be president. If you do, I really question whether you are interested in America or whether you're interested in Trump. Anyway, it's just a thought. Leave your comments down below. Tell me how wrong I am. Hit that like button. Again, subscribe if you want to hear more of these. And I really appreciate it. Thanks.